Hello, BookTube. I have a bit of a Monday reads for you. 6 books that I want to parade in front of your tortured TBRs. And as usual, it's 3 that I have read in one way or another. There's one that's sort of a gray area, as usual. And then 3 that I have not read. And the 3 that I have read, I can recommend, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. Once again, I apologize. The ongoing apology on this channel to your TBRs. And the first one is by Dr. Jeremy Brown, and it is Influenza. This is the paperback. This is going to be $17. Yeah, this is the paperback of his terrific book on influenza. It's nature, it's mutations, it's the scourge that it has been to humankind. The history of its presentation and its understanding, and the medicine designed to combat or even eradicate it. It's that kind of a book. It's not groundbreakingly original in terms of its composition. You've seen many books like that, but this is, without any condescension at all, this is very much like a very learned friend of yours sitting down and just talking to you about every aspect of this subject. Not a lot of authors can pull that off really well, and this author really does. And of course, it's unfortunately topical if you live in America, the craziest country in the world. If you live in America, where an increasing number of adults are deciding not to inoculate their children against any of these diseases that rampaged over the whole world 100 years ago. And as a result, these parents have children who are live vectors for something that can kill them, and they can kill your children too. And they send their children to school, they send them to camp, they send them to church and church events, and somehow or other are not deprived of their children, when that is prima facie evidence of homicidal carelessness. So it ought to be something that automatically costs you your children. If your township can verify, or if you go to a town meeting and outright admit that you don't inoculate your children, but you don't keep them at home, well, then you're a public health risk, obviously, a self-confessed public health risk. So influenza and measles, unbelievable that we're talking about a massive outbreak of measles in the United States in 2019, and a whole bunch of other diseases are going to become more and more headline grabbing. But this is every aspect of influenza, and he's just terrific. And it comes out in a paperback. I think the paperback is October. Oh no, September. This could be in your bookstores now. It's just got a load of blurbs on the paperback. Oh no, it comes out October 1st. So it'll be a $17 paperback on October 1st. And then the next one, also a paperback, a lovely paperback, a nice floppy, matte textured thing, is an absolute classic, something that you absolutely have to have. If you're on BookTube, then you already have a deeply personal interaction with this book, whether you know it or not, whether you've read it or not. And it's Susan Orlean's, the library book, now in its in a trade paperback. So this will be a $17 trade paperback, probably on the 1st of October. Talk about loaded with blurbs. This was everybody's favorite book. Yes, 1st of October, which I'm assuming is a Tuesday, because a million books coming out on that day, and Tuesday is the day. This has blurbs from everybody under the sun. It's a terrific, terrific book. I don't know if I'm blurbed in it. The Christian Science Monitor is blurbed, but it wasn't me. I wasn't the one who did it. It was Rebecca Den, and she did a great job. I reviewed this book for, I believe, The National, which nobody ever knows. I never get blurbs. There are never any blurbs by me from The National on any book, because people don't know that it exists. It was a very active, very healthy book coverage. It's an English language newspaper in Abu Dhabi, and I'm not blurbed on this, but you should still buy it. That shouldn't be the only thing you look for. This is because it's not only a study of a massive fire in a library in Los Angeles, 30 years ago. It's not only Susan Orlean reshifting the evidence of that case to figure out, did the authorities implicate the right person? How did it happen? What was the aftermath? It's not only that. This is also a book about libraries, just in general, and is amazing. Amazingly good. As far as I know, it only had 1 negative review. I think in book form. I'm not 100% sure. I only read, in the mainstream book reviewing world, I only read 1 negative review. And I gotta say, ordinarily I have a great deal of respect for negative reviews. I've written my share of them. But that negative review, wherever it was, struck me as the reviewer went into the book with a bad attitude, and was going to hate it regardless of what happened. So I might be wrong about that, but I strongly recommend the book. Strongly. The hardcover will be in every library in the country, so in America, probably overseas as well. If you are one of those people that I hear about on BookTube all the time, who has had a love affair with their library for their whole lives, you have to read this book. Absolutely have to read this book. I was that kind of person. I'm not anymore. And it's an odd thing. It's an odd thing to regret, to sort of miss a period in my life that I could easily summon up again. I could be that person again. I just don't like to leave. I didn't like to leave my boys when they were old and stiff, and then one by one they died, and I got young dogs. And at first, when you have young dogs, you can't leave them because you're afraid they'll eat everything under the sun or chew an electrical cord or something like that. And you also want to acclimate them slowly to the rhythm of you coming and going, but you always come back, that sort of thing. And then those young dogs, in what felt like a blink of an eye, they were suddenly old and ailing and sick, and I couldn't leave them. And now I have another. That's that cycle. And there are periods in that cycle where it is okay to leave. Where it's okay to leave now, but it's where it's more okay to leave. When you have a slightly older dog, 6, 7 years old, somewhere in there, that dog metabolism is slowing down. They're going to be happy to just sleep for long stretches of the day. They're going to be happy to see you. They're going to be happy for a little understated exercise, but they're not going to need you to be there around the clock. And that, I imagine, I will be a library person again when I have that period now. I used to split my time between a very old and very ornate private library here in Boston, and the Boston Public Library, which is the greatest public library anywhere in the world, and specifically Bates Hall. If you Google Bates Hall Boston Public Library, you will see why I went there virtually every day of the week for some time. And I got used to the new release section, and I got used to the rhythm of the place, and fell in love with it. Of course, you fall in love with your library. I especially like a really good research library. Bates Hall is a very good research library. I'm just not in that phase now, but whether you are or not, you will have had that phase. You will have loved your library at some point or other if you're on BookTube. So, get a copy of the library book. You're going to love it. And then the last of the three that I have read piecemeal. I have read the bits and pieces that are in here, most of them, in their original publication. This is a must-have book for Earthlings. If you are an Earthling, then you must have this book. I hate to lay these burdens on your TBR, but these are essential. To have a shelf of these things is just essential. This is National Geographic, the greatest magazine in the world. They do an annual almanac where they look back at the year that was, and in their own articles, in their own features, and they assemble a lot of those features, a lot of their great artwork, a lot of the topics that were on their minds for that year. And this is the Almanac 2020 that has just all sorts of reproductions from their best articles, their best visuals, all throughout 2019. These are just amazing. You can lose hours in these books, just hours in them. I'm so glad that they make them. And this is the 2021. I don't know. Oh, I do have this pub sheet for this. This is out already. This came out in August. This is a paperback that will be only $20. I know that's a lot of money, but this is all color reproductions, and it's high quality, sort of plasticky pages, so it'll stay that way. It won't yellow or anything. It won't brittle. So $20 is not bad for a look back at what was on National Geographic's mind for the whole of 2019. So those are the three that I have read. Partially, the 2020 Almanac will be an experience. I will definitely love crawling my way through it again. And then we'll do three that are right on my launch pad. There are three that I haven't read yet. I have, in 2 cases, meant to. In 1 case, I'm long overdue. The first one is one we've seen on this channel before. This is by James Trefil and Michael Summers, and it is Imagined Life. And the long subtitle is A Speculative Journey Among the Exoplanets in Search of Intelligent Aliens, Ice Creatures, and Supergravity Animals. And the exoplanets in question are the ones that keep popping up by the hundreds and now by the thousands. Deep space observation from Earth have detected exoplanets, not just stars in distant, in distant solar systems, but through a very precise means of measuring that starlight, also detected planets orbiting those stars and be able to tell some pretty specific things about their makeup. We know that quite a few of the exoplanets that have been discovered, I think we're probably over 3,000 by now, that quite a few of those exoplanets are almost certainly Earth-like. And that's amazing. And we also know the ones that aren't Earth-like, we know what they're like. And so that has sparked a renaissance of speculation about extraterrestrial life, the like of which the publishing industry has not seen since the 70s. And so I'm looking forward to a book like this and many others like it. I'm hoping that many are coming. Then a historical fiction. It's an author that I really like. And this is his new book, new to me anyway. I don't know if this is already out in the UK, but this is Andrew Miller, who did Ingenious Pain. He did Ingenious Pain was his first book, and that was tremendous, just tremendous. He also did a novel called Casanova, which I really liked, Oxygen. And the latest one that made some fuss, that got lots of critical attention, was The Crossing. I haven't read everything by him, but everything I've read by him I really like. And this is his new one, which comes out. It's out already. It came out on September 10th is the date on the sheet here. And this is Now We Shall Be Entirely Free. This is Europa Editions. They are great. They have such a great editorial team picking stuff. They almost never a dud. And this has a blurb on the cover from Hilary Mantel, which is worth its weight in gold. And it is about a survivor of the Battle of Corunna, which you Napoleonic history fans will know that already. Let me hold up the quite enticing cover. When Captain John LaCroix returns home from Spain, wounded, unconscious, and alone, he believes that he has seen the worst of what men may do. It is 1809, and in England's wars against Napoleon, the Battle of Corunna stands out as a humiliation. A once proud army forced to retreat, civilized men reduced to senseless acts of cruelty. Gradually, he recovers his health, but not his peace of mind. He cannot talk about the war or face the memory of what happened in that remote mountain village in Corunna. The command comes to return to his regiment. He's not done. The war is not done with him. He's commanded to return, and he's shattered. Instead, he sets out for the Hebrides. But LaCroix has more to fear than being dragged back to the fight. Unbeknown to him, a vicious English corporal and a Spanish officer have sent out on his trail. And the haven he finds with a family of freethinkers and the women he comes to love cannot protect him from his pursuers or his past. So you get a whole bunch of things. The author trying a whole bunch of things at the same time, it sounds like. Not just post-traumatic stress disorder, horrors of war novel, but also a bit of a manhunt novel. So historical fiction that's reflective but also adventure-y, which fits in with the stuff that I've read from Andrew Miller. I haven't read everything, but all the stuff that I've read walks that line just perfectly. So I'm really looking forward to this, and it's due. It's out already, and this other one is from, I believe, August, and I just haven't got to it, even though it catapulted to the #1 spot on the New York Times bestseller list for nonfiction. This is by Karen Abbott, and is The Ghosts of Eden Park. Those of you in America will have recognized this when you go into your Barnes & Noble. It's right there in the bestseller section. Do I have it? Yeah, I do. I have this is a true crime thriller. Let's see here. Meet George Remus, a teetotaling bootlegger, erudite madman, and real-life inspiration for F. Scott Fitzgerald's Jay Gatsby. In her new book, published to coincide with the centenary of Prohibition. Oh, God. Has it been only 100 years? Oh, my. New York Times bestselling author Karen Abbott takes readers into the dazzling world Remus would create, only to lose it all in a spectacular fashion. In October of 1919, Remus, an impoverished German immigrant with an alcoholic father, quit his law practice in Chicago and moved to Cincinnati, where he launched the most successful bootlegging operation in American history. Long before Al Capone became a household name, Remus used intellect rather than systemic violence to build his staggering empire, known as the King of the Bootleggers, and a figure that we have seen before. There's another book that's currently new, but this one is the one that caught on. He and his glamorous second wife, Imogen, throw lavish parties at their mansion with generous gifts to attendees, diamond watches for the men, brand new Pontiacs for the women, and 1,000 bills tucked under everyone's plate. Pioneering U.S. Attorney Mabel Walker Willebrandt was determined to prove that a woman was up to the job and set her sights on Remus. She dispatched her ace prohibition agent, Franklin Dodge, to investigate Remus's empire. It was a decision with deadly consequences. Dodge and Imogen began an affair and plotted to ruin him, sparking a bitter feud that reached the highest levels of government and that could only end in murder. So you can see from even that pub sheet, you can see why this would have caught on right away, and it did. So I need to get to it. It's ridiculous that I haven't read this yet. So so there you go. That's a bit of a Monday read for you. Sorry about the strain on your budget. We have Ghosts of Eden Park. I will be the last person to read this thing, I guess. Then Now We Shall Be Entirely Free, a new historical novel from Europa Editions by Andrew Miller, who's an author of proven taste for me. Then Imagined Life, about what we can extrapolate, what ways in which intelligent life might exist, maybe non-technological, maybe a different kind of technology than we understand, on these far distant worlds that suddenly seem so much closer. Then the Almanac 2020, this is an annual thing that National Geographic does, eye-poppingly beautiful and also reminiscent of a year. We have The Library Book by Susan Orlean. This is a trade paperback. It's a wholehearted recommendation. You would be hard-pressed to find a reader on BookTube or elsewhere who's read this thing who doesn't recommend it. And lastly, Influenza by Dr. Jeremy Brown. A history of and sort of profile of one of the deadliest diseases known to man. So there you go. That is Monday Reads. I'm going to wrap this up, but we have plenty more to talk about. So believe it or not, I will be back. Thank you, BookTube.